Now, recently, criminal charges on some of the country's high-profile cases against the only accused arrested were dropped by the courts, allegedly due to a lack of evidence and poor investigation. The cases are of, firstly, 4-year-old toddler Taegrin Morris of Reiger Park, east of Johannesburg, and then of Senzo Meyiwa's murder case. Now, today, the Western Cape High Court may decide on the application brought by British businessman Shrien Dewani's lawyers to have all charges dropped against him. Now, to find out about the future implications of these cases and the public's confidence in the justice system, we are joined by in our Pretoria studios by Dr. Johan Burger. He is a senior researcher in the Governance, Crime and Justice Division at the Institute for Security Studies. Dr. Burger, always a pleasure having you here on the program, and welcome again.
Good morning, Leanne.
Now, it's not really an easy time, is it, for the NPA and the SAPS in recent days? I mean, just to go through those things again, we've got the lawyers for British businessman Shrien Dewani now filing court cases to have all charges dropped against him in possibly one of the highest profile cases we've ever had. Taegrin Morris, charges dropped against them. Senzo Meyiwa, charges dropped against them. What's happening?
Leanne, I think this is a huge embarrassment, not just for those two institutions, but for the criminal justice system and this country as a whole. And, you know, I think what we are seeing now is just something that's been brewing for a long time, and that's now becoming public, dirty washing being washed in public, and it's certainly not going to boost public confidence in the criminal justice system.
Yeah, which doesn't bode well for South Africans, and that possible lack of evidence and poor investigations have been named as some of the issues that led to these criminal charges against the only suspects being dropped. I mean, how do we get to a point where this doesn't happen? I mean, it's almost unacceptable.
You know, there are basic rules that are not adhered to, and when policemen are trained, especially in terms of crime investigations, one of the basic rules is that they need to establish a sound relationship with the prosecuting authority. And this clearly is not happening, or not happening enough. There may be cases where this does happen. But what we are seeing in public, and especially in high-profile cases, this certainly is not the case. And part of the basic rule is the police are responsible for the investigation of the crime. They need to make certain that they gather all the necessary evidence and then present the case docket to the prosecuting authority. But throughout the investigation, there should be regular contact between them. The prosecuting authority, the prosecutor him or herself, needs to look at the case docket from time to time to assess that the evidence material meets the requirements for prima facie case that they can prosecute on. They need to guide the police, and this clearly is not happening at the moment.
You know, we look at some of these cases, these high-profile cases that we mention, and sometimes it almost appears from at least a citizen's perspective that there's so much pressure on the police to make an arrest and to hold somebody accountable for the crime, that perhaps everything falls through the cracks and the investigations are not done properly. Is it fair to judge like that?
Well, you know, there are, especially in the Senzo case, there clearly was a huge amount of pressure on the police. Public pressure, political pressure. Everybody wanted to see a breakthrough. And this, I think, forced the police into a situation where they took a case that was not yet court-ready to the prosecuting authority. But even worse than that, the prosecuting authority accepted this case, which they shouldn't have. If you look at the Dewani case, I mean, it's been 4 years since the murder, Annie Dewani's murder. One would have thought that during 4 years, I mean, there was very little or no pressure in this case. How is it that the case is struggling so much? Of course, we still have to await the court's decision. They may not agree with the approach by the defense, but still, it leaves a bad taste in the mouth that you see the prosecuting authority struggling in a case for which they had such a long time to properly prepare.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if you take this year alone, and I must say this year we have seen very dramatic cases, and particularly I refer to the Oscar Pistorius trial, where South Africa's justice system was put under a microscope. And it didn't really give a great impression. It really did. You know, I mean, in terms of, you know, some bungled investigations and perhaps too much of a light sentence and the image that it lets off. But what has this done to our justice system and the perception of it, particularly for South Africans, that the trust is surely, it's dropping quite dramatically?
It certainly does, Leanne. I mean, you know, we see this in the high-profile cases where you have some of the top detectives involved, you have some of the top prosecutors involved, and when one looks at these high-profile cases and you see the bungling that happens, then you can only imagine what it looks like in cases that is not as prominent. I mean, we have to accept, if you look at our number of murders in South Africa, more than 17,000 murders last year. And these are just murder cases, does not include the attempted murder and all the other serious criminal offenses. Then we also have to understand that there is no way on this earth that the police are able to give the sort of attention to all of these cases that they warrant. So what we are seeing, I think, is that the impossibility of proper investigations and proper legal attendance to these cases are shown up in the high-profile cases. Yeah. Below those high-profile cases, the problem is even much worse than this.
Yeah, which is very worrying for us South Africans who, you know, perhaps don't get this attention that all of these high-profile cases do. Dr. Burger, this is an hour interview that I need with you, because I really would love to know what you would like to see done. If you can give me one solution in 30 seconds, it'll help. What do you think needs to happen in the justice system?
Well, of course, I think we need to return to the basics. And this is a proper relationship between the investigators of the police service and the prosecuting authority. And we need our commanders within the police service, but also senior managers within the prosecuting authority to come together and to re-establish those basic rules, rules of investigation and prosecution. I think if we can start doing that, that would already be a step in the right direction, and then the rest should follow.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you so much for joining us here on the program. Dr. Johan Burger, Senior Researcher of Governance with Crime and Justice Division with the Institute of Security Studies, just painting the reality and a picture that's not so great with the justice system currently here in South Africa. All right, let's take